Welcome to the Mom as Well podcast, where we are digging deep into the gifts and the gaps of foster and adoptive parenting. I'm Tara Hutton, and I'm glad you're here.
Mama's Well.
Yes, she is. Well, I am. I'm really excited for you to get to meet someone. You've kind of already met her, but let me just back up just a little bit. Episode 8 was entitled "Helping Teens and Preteens Find Establish New Normals." I think something like that. And I introduced a dear friend of mine, Nicole, who had been fostering, mentoring, mothering her actually cousin, but she called her niece, and since she was 10 years old, and that was Madison. And at the end of that podcast, we showed a video of Madison where you got to meet her. But man, that podcast was really, really, that was incredible. And I got a lot of great feedback. And so I asked Madison if she would join us, and so that we could get her perspective. And she immediately said yes. So I would like to welcome Madison Wright. How are you, Madison?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. You're no stranger to lights and microphones.
I guess not.
No, you're not. You're not. She's a beautiful singer.
Thank
and
you.
leads worship at church.
I do. I love getting to do that.
Yeah. Every time you do that, my heart is so like motherly, I guess, proud, because I know the bravery that takes to stand up there and do that.
Yeah, it's super like a vulnerable feeling, like being in front of everyone.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, so good job, girl. Keep doing it. You practice vulnerability a lot, don't you?
I try my best.
Today?
Yes. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I whenever I was about to, I was proofing the video that I did with you and your Aunt Nikki. When I listened to it, I thought, I couldn't help but just wondering, like, is Madison going to be okay with this? You know? And so before I sent that out, I sent it to you guys and said, I want to make sure you're okay, right? And you watched it, and
yeah. Nicole and I sat down and we watched it, and for a minute it was like, whoa, like this is like really exposing of me. But we talked about it, and I was like, it's in the end, it's worth it, because if it's helping someone else, and like all the bad things, they're like using them for good.
Yeah.
So it's vulnerable, but it's worth it.
Yeah. Vulnerability gives us a lot of great stuff, like connection and
it does.
Courage. Yeah. So I'm always inspired by you, Madison, and
Thank you.
And your Aunt Nikki. And so thank you. Thank you for joining us. We sat down yesterday to talk about this because you live near and we could. And so we had some tea and just, I wondered, okay, what would I want to share? What would I think? What does Madison have? She has so much. But if I just could let everybody meet her and hear from her for an hour, what would I want? What would I want them to hear from Madison? And so the question I asked you was, if you had an opportunity in your adult body, because you're now an adult, to share with other foster parents, whether that be Aunt Nikki's kinship placements or just strangers that became mothers to foster or adoptive, children, what would you want to say? What would the little Madison want to say? What would you? And I think the way we put it is, if she, Trinity, our daughter Trinity, and you guys have a little bit of a bond. Y'all have known each other. You've known her ever since she came into our home. Right. You were there. And she actually even kind of looks like you, in my opinion.
I've been told that by a couple people.
So beautiful. And so what would you want to speak up for Trinity to tell me or to tell another foster parent? And so I just think that's really valuable because you have done a lot of healing and a lot of growth, and our children, they don't necessarily know what they need or what they want when they're that age. Even when they're your age, it's very rare that someone your age would have the understanding and the awareness that you have, and the healing that you've had. So anyway, that's a long, long question, but since we talked about it yesterday, you've kind of been thinking about it. And
Right.
so I know that you've journaled about it and you've thought of a lot of things. So I don't want you to worry about getting every single thing down, but let's just open up the conversation. If there was your Aunt Nikki gave you so much, right? Where would you want to start? What was the one thing that's just coming to your mind right now that you're like, man, this has helped me tremendously? What would that be?
Yeah, I think that, like, when I think of all my time with my Aunt Nikki, which has been like 8 years, living with her, but before that, I always had a good relationship with her. I think that the biggest thing she's taught me and that has impacted my life so greatly is to let myself feel things and to be aware of my own emotions. And I know that you guys talked about that on y'all's episode. Mm-hmm. And so, like, whenever I was younger, before I lived with her, people always told me, like, oh, you shouldn't feel that way. Like, that's so stupid. Why would you let someone, why would you let someone make you feel that way, or whatever it was. Yeah. But when I moved in with her, I would always get so angry or sad over the littlest things, or I'd really be upset about something else, but I'd take it out on her or take it out on a situation. And I never knew, like, why am I so mad? Or why did this certain comment make me so sad? But she would always sit down with me and she would be like, okay, like, tell me how you feel, first of all. And even if it was wrong or if it sounded stupid, she would validate my feelings. And that was something that was so big for me, and that I think is so important for any foster kid and for a foster parent to do, is to, even if the feeling is silly or what someone else thinks isn't important or stupid, but to say, like, I understand how you could feel that way.
Yeah.
For me, that was so big. Like, just saying, like, maybe I don't know how you feel, or I don't know how you got to that feeling, but saying, like, it's okay to feel that way.
Yeah.
But then another thing was, she, like, said, it's okay to feel that way, but, like, this is the truth, and your feelings can lie to you. And so she would, like, validate my feelings, but lead me back to truth.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge thing that I would say she taught me. Like, that's the biggest thing she's taught me, is to be aware of my emotions and to let myself feel things.
Yeah.
And that's still, like, even today, like, still there's times I'm like, I have no idea why I'm so mad and so frustrated, and we'll still sit down, and I still, like, I'm 18 now, but I still have to sit down and talk through my emotions sometimes. Of
course you do.
Yeah, sometimes I'm still like, I don't know why the heck I'm feeling this way, but I'm so mad, or I'm so sad. And she just sits down with me and she's like, okay, and we just talk through it. And it's just, sometimes that's the only way I can get to the bottom, like to the root of why do I actually feel this way.
Yeah. Yeah. So you mean you actually would get mad at your Aunt Nikki?
Believe it or not, yes.
Yeah, I know that answer because you're a human, right?
Right.
Yeah.
She's like the best ever, and she's only given me only a few times I've actually been mad at her, I think, were actually things she did. But most of the time it was just me being mad about something else and taking it out on, like, I'm so angry and I don't know what I'm angry at, so I'm going to be angry at you.
Yeah. And she, you know, obviously as a parent, I can understand that part of it. You know, when our kids are angry and they don't know what they're really angry about, but we're there.
Right.
And we're the safe place for them to be angry, or the safe person for them to be angry at. It is so hard for us to not take it personally. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, in families, we always have to work through that. Like, you know, you have all these people with all these different feelings that they don't, you know, even though your Aunt Nikki, I know your Aunt Nikki pretty well, and she doesn't even always know what her feelings, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a practice of constantly just doing what you said, and that's just validating the feeling. I mean, what harm is in that? I mean, my mom didn't know how to do that either, for herself or for me, but it's when you think about it, it's kind of basic because the feelings are there. It's not like we can stop them.
Right.
We might as well just say, oh, hello, anger. Hello, jealousy.
Right.
Hello, frustration. Hello, insecurity. What do you want to tell me?
Right.
And then maybe we can move past them.
Yes. It's so much better when you actually acknowledge them, be like, and figure it out and get to the root of it instead of just swallowing it and shoving
Yeah.
it down and never talking about it, which is
Right.
what I was taught as a child to do.
Yeah.
Like my siblings and I, we all just had had emotions and feelings, but we never talked about it. It was just like, we're going to pretend like everything's normal and fine and just ignore the things we're going through.
Yeah. Madison, in one of the therapy sessions with my girls, that was the three of us in a room, and the therapist talked about this, about helping the girls to understand their feelings and to acknowledge their feelings. And she brought up something that I had never put together before, and I've learned a lot about addiction, but I hadn't really thought about this. And she said that most that not acknowledging your feelings is it's the root of a lot of addiction, because when we feel these things, we don't know what to do with them. We don't acknowledge, we stuff them down. Eventually we just need to medicate them.
Right.
We just need to feel okay, and that's when the alcohol and the drugs, because those are the ways that, or you can medicate with shopping or, social media or Netflix is something that I tend to lean towards, like, I just want to turn on a show. I just want to watch a show.
I just need to escape my reality, and
yes,
the perfect way to do that.
And obviously some are more difficult to deal with. When we use chemicals, our body becomes addicted to them. And so I think that's super important when you talk about your family and your brothers and sisters, and y'all not having that freedom and that space to talk about your feelings. We run the risk of falling into different kinds of addictions and stuff. And so victory, because you're learning how to do that. So
it's a work in progress.
Of course it is. But I hope you understand that to learn that at your age, it is so powerful, because I didn't start even thinking about these things until I was in my 30s. So like double. So you're like 15 years, say, at 10, even more than that, ahead of someone that never even really was aware of her feelings. They just would come, and I would just move on. Shut that down. If it's negative, shut that down. So there's so much power in you learning to practice now versus, and that's why I think it's super important that we as foster parents learn to acknowledge our own feelings so that we can help them. Because if we're always telling ourselves, oh, stop it, that's ridiculous, stop feeling like that. Well, it's automatic to see the rest of the world that way, So it has to start here. So you're already in training to be a fabulous Aunt Nikki. And I want to segue a little bit, because I know you have a lot to say, but something that reminds me, your Aunt Nikki told me, you told me yesterday, but I already knew it. And I think I had already said it to your Aunt Nikki, that I saw this in you. But are you interested in sharing? Wow, this is vulnerable. You're speaking it out into all the podcast land, wherever you are. There's people listening in Belgium, in the Philippines, in Germany.
That's so crazy.
I couldn't believe that. There's actually people, y'all are listening.
I love that. That's awesome.
So you recently have kind of come to some terms, speaking of learning these things, and we're going to go back to the other things that you would want to say. But I want to segue a little bit in something that you've recently uncovered about yourself, and maybe where you want to go with your future.
Yeah, so I recently have been doing a lot of thinking about, because I started college, so I've been thinking a lot about where I want to go with that and what I want to do. And there's a couple of things that I think I'm pretty good at, but and so I was like, okay, there's a couple different directions I could go, but I really have been thinking a lot about it recently, and I've decided that I want to pursue getting my master's to become a counselor for children with trauma.
Wow.
And so, because I just see, like, even in like Trinity and Skyla and like little me's, I literally picture them as little me's, and I'm like, I know like exactly like how you're feeling, and like I think it's so, like, I'm so excited to get to work with kids like that, because the capability of, like, being a healthy, functioning human, like, of our best abilities, we're all working on it, but like, it's just extra work for some people, like foster kids, like children of trauma, like it just requires a little extra work from us, but also from foster parents, like someone willing to invest in us. And so, I'm super excited, because I've really been thinking about, like, that's something I want to pursue, being like a counselor with children of trauma.
Would be fantastic. And I don't think I said this to you. I think I said it to Aunt Nikki, but I already envision you being a mentor. I mean, you already kind of are, but I meant like in a really, I know people have mentored you and nurtured you, and we can talk about that. I already am playing fast forward, seeing you working with my girls in a way, just, letting them see you've done hard things, Madison, really hard things. And you keep choosing to do hard things, like sit here today. So, Madison, I know your story for the most enough. And Aunt Nikki shared some of it, and I really see this episode as an opportunity for you to speak into the lives of parents that are struggling right now, because you had a very chaotic, and we talked about this on episode 8. If you didn't see episode 8, you need to go back and watch episode 8. It's fantastic. If you're parenting a preteen or a teenager, Aunt Nikki, I call her Nicole, but Aunt Nikki, she did an amazing job with this young lady, as you can tell. But that chaotic background. What I really want to do in this episode is I really want you to speak into those lives, because it's hard, right? So tell them, though, just give them a little bit of insight, to how you wound up from Alabama to Texas, living with Aunt Nikki. Just a brief, and then we'll go back to where we were headed on that.
Yeah, so my parents got divorced when I was probably 6, and I remember from that point being bounced around from mom to dad to grandma to uncle to wherever it was, wherever my parents kind of thought would be best, or where my siblings were. When I was younger, I tend to stick to my siblings a lot, because that was the only stability I had. Like, okay, they're my siblings. If my parents aren't here, my siblings are still going to be with me. And so I was bounced around a lot, and I ended up staying at my grandma's for a couple of years. And then I ended up moving to Texas with my dad and brother. And then I remember, there's so many. I was bounced around so many times, it's hard to remember all the little things. But when I was 10, I ended up going to live with my aunt, Aunt Nikki. And I remember being with her since. There was a short period of time where I went back to Alabama. But pretty much since 10, I've been with her. But yeah, my childhood was a lot of being bounced around, and a lot of uncertainty of where am I going next? Like, who can I depend on? And just kind of created a sense of responsibility in me. Like, I have to be the glue and like make things work and be my own stability. But I've been with Nicole since I was 10, and I've been working and growing since then.
And it's interesting that you've been in a separate state from your siblings for a long time. And I know because you and I have had talks and walks and conversations about this, but that's been really hard on you to be separated from your siblings.
Yes, that is definitely like even now, like that's the hardest thing by far. Because growing up, like no matter what was going on, like we were a pack. Like we had like my siblings, like we stuck together. And so, and it's like those are the only people who can relate to really what I've been through, who walked through it with me. And so whenever I moved here, it was a big ordeal, and it was so hard for me to leave my siblings behind. But I knew that that's what I had to do for myself, and that really I couldn't ever help them or see a change in them unless I decided to go and help myself first.
Yeah.
And so, but that's still, even today, is like so hard for me to, and now my oldest sister has a kid, and like to be away from my nephew and from my siblings is so hard. And there are some days where I just get so sad about it. And yeah.
What were I'm remembering to some of our conversations, and I'm remembering one of, and correct me if I'm wrong, I may be off, but I think one of the feelings that you felt was guilt, because that you were leaving them in a very unstable. They didn't find stability, right?
Right.
They ended up, they're all on their own.
Right.
And so they never did find what, or 3 of them didn't, right? There's 4 of you. So
4. I'm
2
one of 4.
Yeah. Little sister ended up moving here, and she's a little more stable, but the other 2 grew up kind of on their own, right?
Yeah, they grew up and now they're just on their own.
Yeah. And so there was a feeling in you. Is this okay to talk about?
Oh, yeah, for
okay. Sure. Talk about just feeling like you were, I remember you were very sad, because you were, not only did you miss them, but you felt like you were kind of abandoning them in a way.
I did. And I felt like I was getting an opportunity, which it wasn't like just me. I mean, they wanted to stay.
Sure.
That was, and they're older than me. So it's my 2 older siblings.
Yeah.
So they're older, and they kind of had they were living with my grandparents. We all were, and they had their life established and their friends established. But I felt so guilty. I was like, I'm leaving you guys, like almost like I deserve to be in this with you.
Yeah.
And so that was so hard for me. I felt a lot of guilt and just responsibility for them. Like, I have to take care of them. I have to be with them and those things.
And so what would your Aunt Nikki, because this is another very real, talking about communicating with foster parents, this is another very, very real thing. You know, you weren't the oldest sibling. You weren't the one that was, could have been deemed responsible for everybody. You were actually the second to the youngest.
Right.
But what did y'all talk, how did y'all work through that? Like I know you might still be working through it, but like you said, they are on their own. They're grown now, growner.
Right. Yes.
My boys just are getting married. I'm like, they're still men, boy men.
Boy men. I love that.
So, but tell us a little bit about how you work through that. What's some things that's a big deal.
Yeah. So I remember that summer I was living with my grandma, and I just came to visit. And Nicole and I both had in our minds, like, it'd be really great for me to be living with her. And I think that was something on her heart. And like, I had that desire, like I saw a family and I was like, this is normal. And I so desired that. And so I came here that summer just to visit with my Aunt Nikki. And long story short, we ended up like praying about it, and we both felt like, okay, I'm going to move here. But then telling my siblings about it and my family, they were of course super upset.
Sure.
And not the biggest fans of it.
Yeah.
And now they're so glad that I'm here. But at that time it was super hard for everyone. Just because growing up with so much instability, and now it's another thing that's changing, and another person
and they were going to miss you.
Right. And it was viewed as another person that's leaving. And so for me, that was almost like a deal breaker. Like, I was like, I can't leave my siblings. But she talked to me and she was like, you aren't leaving your siblings in the long run. She would always tell me, in the long run, like a few years later, you'll look back and you'll be so thankful that you did it, because you'll have more of an impact on your siblings, and they'll be able to see, like, she grew up in the same way we did, but look how far she's come and put in the hard work. And so she really just encouraged me, like, yes, this is a hard thing, and it sucks, but it's going to be so worth it.
Yeah.
And it shows like that, like, choosing a healthy environment, even though it's sacrifices of leaving my siblings, it would be worth it. And now I look back, and my siblings are so happy that I'm here, and they're so proud that I chose to come here. And so now it's cool now at this time, because it's seeing, like, we're all kind of starting to build relationships again. And with my mom being out of rehab, we're all kind of mending and figuring out our way of what does our family look like. But that's Nicole just encouraged me a lot of, like, yes, this is hard, but it will be worth it in the long run.
Yeah, I think that's really powerful. And ultimately, when just, addiction is a family disease.
Mm-hmm.
And so when one person in the family starts to get well, it's this trickle down where other people, and you just briefly mentioned that your mom is in recovery. And I've watched that from afar too.
Right.
And I definitely feel like you've had a very powerful, and we don't have to get into that, but you've played a really powerful role in her healing. And I bet she would say the same thing, because she saw you choose to take care of yourself and do what was best for you in spite of other people needing you or wanting you and you feeling responsible for them. She saw you, her daughter. You led her to healing. Do you ever think about that?
Not in that. I mean, I think that me moving definitely has an impact on my family, and I know now that that was the best thing I could have done, and I'm so glad that I did. And I think that it's impacted my siblings and my mom, and so I think, but I'm so proud of her for like doing the work. But I do think that me being here opened doors for her and showed her there is a way.
Life.
Yes,
Yeah.
Another life.
Another
right.
way.
Right,
Yeah.
Another way.
I all of that just came to me when I said that, but I really believe that to be true. I really believe that, you know, in our relationship, Kyle started doing some healing work on himself, which invited me and opened up some freedom for me to do it. And I think that that's kind of how it works in families, is that one person starts to heal and it invites another person to heal. Right. But we think we should help them heal. Mm-hmm. But it's not the case. The case is that we heal. Because chances are we may even be a part of their problem. You know what I mean? So so I think that you probably, it's, you don't want to feel like you're tooting your own horn or anything, but I could see, and I bet your mom would say, that you played a huge role in giving her permission to step into her own healing work.
Right.
So proud of you again. All right, Madison, I want to go back to what I've just felt like the heart of the show is for today, and that is, what would you want to communicate to other foster and adoptive parents that are parenting young children or teens, preteens, and, you know, we talked about this yesterday, but and for those of you who don't know, my husband Kyle and I have adopted two girls. Trinity is the older of the two. She's 8 now, and Skyla's 5. And I've always kind of saw, you know, I'm looking at Madison, and I'm seeing the growth, and I'm wanting, and I do see that same growth in our girls. But when I think about, you and I talked yesterday, like, what would you want to speak up for Trinity to say? What would you want to voice for her when she doesn't necessarily have the vocabulary, the communication skills? What would you want me to know as her mom for her? Does that make sense? Like, and so that's what I'm wanting. I think that's a great context, because it's like basically saying what you said, the mini me. What would the mini me ask? Well, Trini's your mini me, you know. Thank goodness. I love that you love her and she loves you.
I do love her so much.
What would that be? What are some things that you would, what else? We've talked about validating your feelings and helping you work through, you know, just all kinds of issues, like the sibling issues. What else would you want to say?
I think that a huge thing for me growing up, and still today, a lot of the things are still today.
Of course.
But, and I think that every foster kid, I was just around some kids the other day who had been through some trauma, and I like saw it in them, and I've seen it in lots of kids who have dealt with trauma, and in my siblings and in me. But growing up with so much instability, you really just want to have a sense of belonging. And that's still something to, like, the other day, something happened and I started crying, and my aunt was like, "What's wrong?" And I was like, that just really, like, the thing that happened, I was like, that just really made me feel like I don't fit in with your family, or I don't have a sense of belonging. And so I think that that's a huge thing that I would say to foster moms is a lot of the things I know when I was growing up, and like with Nicole, a lot of the things I would be upset about are things I would feel like I don't have a place to belong, or I don't have a real family, or no one really wants me. And that's still something today that I'm like, I don't feel like anyone really wants me for me. And so that's it. That's a big thing that I would say is a lot of the things we do are just out of, we feel like jealous, or that's a big thing for me. I get jealous often of, and I'm so thankful for that I have two families. I have the Benders, my Aunt Nikki, that family, and then I now have my mom and my siblings. But with that, with the bio family and the foster family comes you're juggling two families, and you really don't feel normal. Like you have just a normal kid would just have one family that they belong to. Yeah. And so that'd be another big thing.
Man, wow. I totally hear what you're saying from my own perspective, and then also from my daughter's perspective and from your perspective. And that is very, very deep, what you just said. Just feeling like, do I really belong here? You know? Yeah. And there's not a whole lot that I can do about that as a mom, except to be aware of it.
Right.
You know? Because I can't go back and recreate a past, or, you know, make her come out of my tummy, because I wouldn't want to do that anyway. She has God gave her exactly what she needed. You know, she's got a birth mom, and she's got me, and you have a birth mom, and you've got your Aunt Nikki. So there's nothing that we can do as parents. Right. I mean, you're not saying you need us to do anything. You're just saying, be aware. Just being aware.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that's like something I always, and I know that in Aunt Nikki's episode, you guys talked about how I would think, especially like when my mom got out of rehab, I would think like, oh, I can't really get close to my bio mom, because then Aunt Nikki's going to feel like I don't need her, and I do need her.
Yeah.
And so that's still been a journey of like, I can have both, but just having my mom and Aunt Nikki be aware of like, this is hard, and I want to fit into both so badly, but that's so hard because there's only so much of it, and I'm figuring it out, but there's only so much of me. Like, I want to be all in. Sometimes, and this sounds bad, but sometimes I'm like, I don't want to be a part of two. Yeah. I want just one normal family. And so that's something, there's nothing, and I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't have it another way. I'm so happy that I have both. But it's a huge thing, like, when people are just aware of it.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. And you know what? As you get older, this is what's happening for me. I'm starting to see that, and I see it in you already, right? So that's normal, right? For me to look years down earlier and see it in you, but that your story is exactly what makes you so unique. And it's actually what makes you, you know, why I would choose, you know, this pottery on the shelf of all these other pieces of pottery, because how it all came together, you know, and what will make you so powerful in the role that you feel like that you're moving into, which I already know you have 2 years of college already done, right? So you're starting.
So I have, well, in order to do any sort of counseling, you have to have your master's. So I have 3 more left.
Yeah. So this is not like you're making dreamy decisions. These are real decisions you're making right now. And I can already see, and I think you're going to begin to continue to own that, like, as a gift. Like, I know you understand you've got a gift, right? I understand. But I think that you're going to be able to start to see that as, that's the thing that makes me even more powerful. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing. I like all these different colors. You know, Kyle said, that's a weird thing. Like, I like it. I like all the variety.
Right. And that's something I'm just now more recently, because, you know, growing up, like, with my story and with the trauma I've been through, it's kind of something I'm not really proud of that. It's something it's vulnerable. Yeah. And I kind of want to, like, keep it to myself. But recently with thinking about, like, I want to go into counseling, which children with trauma, like realizing that the things I've been through, they sucked and they're like, they're icky, but they're going to be used for good. And they can, because I'm not, a lot of times I felt like alone, like, oh, I'm the only person who's going through this, or who has like a bad childhood, but realizing there's so many kids who have that, and so many kids in the foster system who are going through the same things or worse things that I've been through. And so it's just now being like, okay, these things are okay to talk about, and they're real, and they happened, but I'm not healed, but I'm so far from where I was.
Yeah.
And so that's a big thing. I'm able to talk about them now because I've done the work to get a little better.
Yeah. I see it. And I think that you're coming into that space, and will continue to come into that space of realizing, wow, all that I've been through, that's what's going to make me be really effective with these kids. Because I know I've been there. I've done that. Been there, did that. That's awesome. Okay. So it's an understanding, acknowledging the deep, deep desire to belong, and the hurt and the wound that feels like you don't. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, tell us more. Let's glean some more. So do you realize that foster moms are going to be tuned, like they want so badly to hear what you have to say, because they want to be able to love their little Madison, their little Trinity, their little Skyla in a way that they need to be loved, you know? And the truth is, none of us parents can take away the hurt. The hurt's there. But we can walk alongside you and nurture and help you heal it. So what else you got in that little brilliant mind of yours?
Just another thought that came to my head. I feel like, especially like after I moved in with my Aunt Nikki, I kind of got viewed as like everybody wanted to be super nice to me. And that was great, but it was kind of like, oh, people feel bad for me and view me different. And I just wanted to be viewed as normal. I was like, I just want everybody to just treat me normal. And so
Did you not trust it?
Yeah, I didn't trust it, and I thought, like, it goes back to, like, the sense of belonging. I thought, oh, people view me differently, and I'm not a real, like, and now I would say that Aunt Nikki, I have two moms, but Aunt Nikki is like my mom.
Yeah.
And so back then I'd be like, I'm not, like, you don't view me as your real kid. Like, nobody does. And so I just wanted to be, like, treated normally. Like, I don't know where I'm going with this.
No, I hear you. Yeah, I hear you. I think I had a sense of always questioning people and questioning their motives. I don't know if that's what you're saying, but like if someone would say, "Oh, you're such a smart girl," in my mind I would always think they're just saying that.
You're just saying that because you feel bad for me.
Yeah, you feel bad for me.
Yes.
That's right.
And I still, like, even today when people say things to me, it's like, you're just saying that because you feel bad for me. And I didn't want people to feel bad for me.
Right.
And I think that's another reason why I don't like to talk about things sometimes, because I'm like, I don't want anybody to feel bad for me. I just want to be viewed as normal. It's
so interesting because I was recently talking to someone and they said that same thing. They are an adoptee, older, much older than us, in her 70s, and she said she feels often when she says she's adopted that people say, "Oh," like it's something to pity or be sad. And she was saying, I hate that. It's not something to be pitied or be sad. I love my life, she said.
Right.
And she was 70. You know, she's lived a long life and she's worked through a lot of this, but so not to be pitied, but like you're saying, I want to belong. Let me feel like I belong,
right.
You know?
Yes.
Let me have some normalcy, you know, let me feel. Even though in the back of our head we're like, I don't know if I really belong. I don't know if I really, that little voice back there that's telling you lies. You do belong, but you belong in a different way. You came in a different way.
Right.
You'll have a different a different way that you inspire the world and see the world and view the world and help others and see the world.
Right. So it's like finding that sense of normal and something that coming from something so not normal.
Yeah. How was it moving into, because they already have kiddos? I mean, y'all had a full house over there. Mm-hmm. So how was that navigating those relationships? I know we talked about with Nicole, that y'all are like full on siblings,
mm-hmm.
And the same with my boys and the girls. Mm-hmm. But how did you navigate those relationships? Coming into a home where there's 4 other kids, how many kids are there?
3.
So it's 4 of you. Mm-hmm. How was that?
So I know that in Nicole's episode, y'all talked a little bit about the relationships I have with her kids, which now they're like we've all grown up, and so we're all just like best friends. We all I mean, there's still days that
y'all get on each other's
get on each other's
nerves.
nerves.
That's normal. You wanted normal? Yeah. There's normal.
Yes.
Sibling fights.
Yes. But when I first moved in, it was a big change for me, but also I was more excited. Like, oh yes, like I get to be a part of a normal what I thought was a normal family. Yeah. But it was hard for them, like accepting a new person. And I know that I got a lot of Nicole's attention at the like I sucked away a lot of attention and a lot of like I drained her emotionally a lot because I was so emotionally needy. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of foster kids.
Sure.
And I can so see like with a new foster kid coming into a family, how it can be hard on the foster parents' kids, the bio kids.
Yeah.
Because it's something like, it's a sacrifice for the kids too.
Yeah.
It's like the parents are deciding to foster, but the kids it's a big change for them too.
And even if they're all on board.
Yes, even if they're all on board, they were all on board.
My kids were on board.
Yeah, but it's still like.
But it's still like, wait a minute.
I didn't sign up for this. There are those moments. And so I kind of had different relationships with each. So my Aunt Nikki has 3 kids. She has 2 girls and then a boy. And so her youngest daughter, Brooke, and I were like best friends. Like I never got on her nerves. We were inseparable. And then Michaela and I, her oldest daughter, we were super close and got along. But Ethan and I just didn't get along at all. And he was like, who is this girl like coming in my house and taking all my mom's attention and crying all the time, which I was.
Of course.
And so, but now, I mean, Ethan is one of my best friends ever.
Yeah.
And so it's cool to see how those have turned around. But I'm so thankful to them because I know like there'd be nights where I'm crying and they want to hang out with their mom, but I'm draining her and like she's talking to me and working with me. Mm-hmm. And so I'm super thankful that they all were inviting and they welcomed me into their home and into their family.
Yeah.
And I know now like they're my siblings. Like I love them as much as I love my birth siblings. Like I have so many siblings. Yeah. And so now I'm so thankful that they invited me in and welcomed me in because I know that's a big thing for siblings letting foster kids come into their home.
So how did they how did they navigate that? How did Aunt Nikki and Troy, how did they navigate the bickering or whatever?
Well, I didn't, the only one I really argued with was Ethan. Yeah. But that was just because I was an emotional crybaby and he...
Oh, you're labeling yourself negatively there.
Well, it's looking back at it now, I'm like... You
needed...
I just...
You had a lot of stuff.
Yes, I had a lot of stuff.
First, feeling those emotions?
Yes. And I just I had a lot to feel and I needed somebody to walk through
and he was a preteen at the time. How old was he?
Yes, he was, I think, maybe 12.
Oh, there you go.
Yep. And so
That's a hard age.
He's really the only one that we really had any bickering with, but...
Did y'all sit down and talk through it?
The conversation, we've sat down so many times and been like, all right, Aunt Nikki's been like, all right, Madison and Ethan, we're going to talk this out. Like, we're going to walk through it. And that, I mean, just, we've been close for probably like a year and a half, 2 years now. But before that, it was always like, I had to go sit down with Madison and Ethan. They're fighting again. Yeah. But Brooke and Michaela, Nicole did a very great job of, she'd spend time with me and she'd work through things with me, but she would make time for each kid. So like the time she was spending on me, and she still does such a great job of just balancing out her time and loving each kid so well. And so she would make time for Brooke, and she would make time for Michaela and for Ethan, just like individual quality time, which I think kind of saved it all. Like, because they felt like I was taking all her time. So she'd be like, okay, for this hour, I'm going to go spend time with just Brooke. Like, Brooke, you can pick what we're going to do. Or I'm going to go spend time with just Michaela, just Ethan. And so those are the things, and then we'd all spend time together, of course, but those are the things that kind of kept everyone mended and in some sort of sanity.
Yeah. Wow. Don't you want to go to Aunt Nikki parenting school?
I do.
You've been in Aunt Nikki parenting school. I want to go to Aunt Nikki.
I say all the time, like, before I really knew what I wanted to do, I was like, I just want to be an Aunt Nikki to someone. I want to be an Aunt Nikki to a little me. And that's still, like, I think about, like, my purpose, and I'm like, I just want to be an Aunt Nikki to a little me. Or a you to a little Trinity or a little Skyla. And so that's, I'm so thankful for you guys, because I wouldn't be who I am without Aunt Nikki and all the people who have impacted me.
Well, I can say, and I want to make sure we don't put Nikki up on a pedestal, because she would absolutely hate that, because she and I share the same birthdays, so we've spent some birthday weekends together, trips together, girl weekends, and I know her pretty well, and she has struggles and hurts and angers and frustrations.
Yes.
And she is real. And so I don't want anyone to walk away from this podcast going, oh, I've blown it. She probably doesn't have special, she's probably missed some moments with you, hadn't she?
Yes.
She's missed some things. And she would not mind at all if we said this, because she would never want anyone to walk away thinking that she was doing it all right, or that anyone could achieve perfection. Because that's not what we're about here. We're just about, like you said earlier, just getting a little better.
Right. Just one little step at a time.
Yeah, just getting a little better. And so I think that while we have a lot we can learn from Nicole, nobody is doing this perfectly.
Right. And yeah, she would easily admit that. I think all of us kids could say times where she's let us down or hurt us, but it's one step at a time.
Yeah.
And she, at the time, especially, and I know that I was a lot, and any foster kid can be a lot. But I know that at that time she would admit that, you miss things, and that's okay, because you're trying your best.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
Especially managing so many kids.
Yeah.
In different seasons of life. We were all, especially when I moved in, we were all in different seasons of life. And now we're all, grown or teenagers. And so we've established independency, and we still need her, and we still want to spend time with her, but we've all kind of grown up.
Yeah. Yeah, you all can Brooke drive? Brooke can drive, right?
Yeah, everybody can
Everybody's driving.
Brooke's the only one still in school, or like in high school, but everyone's driving. Everyone's just sort of like not got it together, but much more than we were at that time.
Didn't need her as much.
Yes,
y'all need her in different ways now.
In different ways, right.
And you've learned all to ask for what you need.
Right.
Like, I need you, Aunt Nikki. And she can say, I hear you, but I need to handle this right now, and you can accept that. Y'all have practiced this.
Yes, and that's been something that my Aunt Nikki and I have just gotten a lot closer recently, like as I've gotten older, because when I was younger, I would be like, I would need her so badly, but I didn't know why, and she would try to come, and I think this happens a lot with foster moms and the foster kid, like, she'd try to comfort me, and I didn't want her to. Like, I'd push her away. I'd be like, I don't want you to comfort me. And then she'd leave me alone, and I'd be like, well, why don't you care about me? And so it's like, she would say, like, no matter what she tried to do, she couldn't comfort me. And I think that happened, and I know that can be hard for a foster parent. And she would say was one of the hardest things with me is like, how do I help you?
Yeah. Did she ask you that? How can I help you?
She would say, like, she eventually got to the point where she's like, Madison, what do you want me to do? Like, how can I help you? Do you need to go in your room and be alone and be mad? Or do you need to talk through it? Do you need a hug? And once she started asking me those things, and as I got more aware of my emotions, I would tell her, or sometimes I'd just be like, I don't know, like, just sit here until I figure it out.
Yeah. Wow. Did y'all ever just sit there in the quiet for a little while?
Yes, we have. Like, I'm just like, I don't know what I need, but just please be with me until I figure it out.
Wow. Okay, I've read that in books, but I want you to say that again. You just needed her to just be there.
I don't want to be alone. Like, just sit with me until I figure it out. I don't know what I need, but please sit here until I know.
Yeah. Wow. I think that's really powerful. I can see that. I push people away. My daughter will push me away, but she really wants me to pull her in. But if I try to pull her in, she'll push me away.
Right.
It's like this push, pull, push, pull.
And I
push,
think that's
pull.
within every foster kid or child with trauma. Like, we don't know what's going on inside our mind, so we don't know what we want. We want you to comfort us and be with us, but at the same time we don't.
Yeah, we don't.
Like,
maybe you don't trust that
Right,
we're really
yes.
genuine.
Yes.
Or whatever. Yeah. Oh, it's really good. Yeah, you're definitely going to be her mentor. I know you're going to need a whole lot. You're going to need, like, what do they call them? Internship hour. I don't know. You're going to need. I do.
And
She loves you. That's good.
I do have to have internship hours.
All my girls, both my girls love you. That's great, Madison. Well, before we close this out, is there anything else that you would want to say to encourage or to challenge even? Mamas and daddies out there, like what, or kids, maybe there's a kiddo like you listening, and that's like, man, I can understand what she's feeling. Like before we close this out, what would you want to say?
I think that, well, for foster parents, I would just kind of give an encouragement of, no matter where you are with your foster kid,
or adoptive kid.
Yeah, or adoptive kid.
In my mind, I see you more as adopted, even though we never formally, you have guardianship or whatever.
But a foster adoptive kid. No matter where you are, how hectic it is right now, in the long run, like, I know, and it makes me sad to think about, but I know there were times where my Aunt Nikki was like, I don't know how I can help this kid. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know what I can do for her. Am I even doing the right? Like, I know there were times where, I don't want to say she wanted to give up, but she wanted, like, I don't know how I can help you anymore. I don't have anything left to give.
Yeah.
And so I would just encourage, like, foster parents, like, one day your kid will look back and thank you. And you will make an impact on their life by just being there for them and letting them feel things. And like everything we've talked about, letting them feel things and validating their feelings. Like, they will look back one day, even if it's years down the road, and thank you for putting in the work because I know as a child of trauma, I felt like no one wanted to invest in me, and that makes me feel like no one sees things in me. And so I look at my Aunt Nikki, and I'm so thankful that she saw something in me, and she put in the work and did the hard things to help me.
That's beautifully said. That's beautiful. You are an amazing young lady, and I'm so glad that we have this documented, so you can, because I think you're gonna look back. You're already doing it. You're already doing what you aspire to do, and so I think what you've had to say is going to be shifting for a lot of families that are struggling, because it's not pretty, is it?
It's not.
It's not pretty. I know it's not pretty, but we can look at you now and go, oh, she was an easy kid, but that's not the case, was it?
No, I wasn't. I might have been easy in the sense of I never really got into trouble, but emotionally I wasn't easy on anyone.
And there was something in you that wanted, and you had the opportunity to see something different than you had. We talked about that with Nikki. We talked about you said, I want a normal family, and Nikki said, we're not. I don't know what normal is.
Normal compared to what I had been in.
Yes.
And that was something, like, growing up, I would look at people and be like, I want to be like that. Like, that's how I want to turn out. And so that's something for foster kids, adoptive kids, any kid who's been through trauma. Like, just be you and let yourself, like, it's okay wherever you are. I would always I'd look at someone and be like, I should be there. Like, that's how or another kid my age, and be like, I should think those things and be healthy and normal like that. But if I would have been like that, I wouldn't be me.
No. And you're a fantastic you.
Thank you.
No. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, of course. It's been so great, and I'm so happy that I get to be a part of something that's helping others who are walking through things. So Well, anytime you want to come back, anytime you're journaling and you're like, oh,
I want to share this with some more. Will you know my number, right?
I do.
Give me a text.
I will.
Because I think hearing from you is very powerful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for tuning in again today. I want to encourage you to just listen carefully to what she just said, and to not take any of that personally, because it's so easy for us parents to go back and say, gosh, hang our head down and say, I'm never going to be an Aunt Nikki, or my kid's never going to be a Madison, or, or whatever. But you know what? That's just, it's not true. And sometimes it takes a long time. It takes a long, long time to build trust, and to be a safe place, to create a safe place for our kids to. It's not that they don't want to share their feelings. It's that they're afraid, and they don't even know what they're feeling. They just feel out of control. And so I want to just, again, reiterate to myself as a mom, and to everybody here, that, like, we don't have to do this perfectly. We don't have to do this perfectly, and we don't need to beat ourselves up that we're not doing it right, because there is no real right. I just want to encourage us to do what she's asking for ourselves first, which is to listen to our own feelings so that we can listen to each other's. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to download your Wisdom from the Well cards. I brought some again today because I want to remind everybody. These were the original Wisdom from the Well cards, and they're like super, super old, and like, here, look, Madison. These were my first cards. Now they're much prettier. And let's just go with Aunt Nikki's card. I'm going to show you. Where was Aunt Nikki's card? Hers was, it's now posted on my girls' dollhouse.
Aww. Let's
see. It says, feelings are indicators, not dictators. Where is that card? I've got it here somewhere. Here we go. Feelings are indicators, not dictators. This was Aunt Nikki's card, and you can tell where this came from her heart. So I post these to remind myself, like, hey, remember, feel your feelings, talk about your feelings. They don't have to control you. Just welcome them. Hey, what do you want to teach me? And then then you can let it go. So don't forget, download your Wisdom from the Well card this week. Share comments, like, subscribe, and we'll see you again next week.
Mama's way.